Hi, welcome to the Karen Mitches podcast. Today I have Michi.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Can I get you to pull it down a little?
Yeah, of course. All right.
How
so
are-
excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was lovely. I've been watching your podcast and seeing all the comedians come through, and congratulations. It's a great idea and you do really good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what got me thinking about you to ask you on was I saw you were competing at Absolute in their Prove You're a Comic.
Yeah.
Which was really cool because
cool.
I know they were pretty selective. They only had like a certain number of people on. How was that?
It was a very, very good learning experience. Very good. I think I'm very upset at myself because I'm very hard on myself. But also I didn't do as well as I had hoped for, but I did do well. You're going to see this a lot. I'm very here and there. But Absolute Comedy. So I was talking yesterday actually about this. It was an incredible learning experience, and I have a lot of confidence that next year I'll apply again and make it through to the finals. I think I did well, and especially considering the first time I had gone. But, you know, one of the things I really loved about it was the heat that I was in, our group. Oh my God, we couldn't have been more supportive of each other. I was so lucky with the group that I was with. Like, everybody was absolutely lovely. And then the component that I particularly found useful was the feedback that you get from the judges, because the owner's there and then some other comedians have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they take time after your set to sit down with you and give you feedback. So the first day, all the 9 people that go through get the feedback. And the feedback they gave me, I was just like, I couldn't have even paid for this knowledge. Like, for you guys to sit there and listen to me so intently.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, this is invaluable. Thank you. Now, where did I mess up? And I share this feedback with all the other comedians, and because I think in comedy, what makes us special is our authenticity, who we are and our persona on stage. And of course, that won't be for everyone, and you have to find your place. And I think that's why comedians have a favorite place that they like to perform, because that place is typically going to be where you can be most yourself, right?
Yeah.
You feel at home. And when I found out about the competition and was selected, I asked a lot of people, what's the owner like? Because my goal personally, I want my home to be Absolute. I love Absolute Comedy. It really is my favorite stage. And I know that the owner is very much like me in that very technical, very strict about what he likes, and performance is a little old school. And I'm old school too, because I study Seinfeld. Seinfeld for me is like my mentor, you know?
Yeah.
So he's very technical that way. And what I did when I went to the competition is that I edited myself and my jokes to please him. And so when I did that, I lost a big part of my persona on stage.
Oh, okay.
And then when I got the feedback the first day, which was incredible feedback, I tried to apply it for the next 3 days, right? Because I made it through semifinals. And I lost my persona. And then, you know, when you're in a competition, doing something new you got to stick to what got you there.
Yeah.
And so I think now I know I'll have a year to apply what they've told me. And next year I'll go and do better, but also be true to myself. Because at the end of the day, for as much as I want to be anywhere, I have to be received as I am, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge thing. Like, it sounds simple to say to like be oneself or like be authentic, but it's hard because you are like trying to achieve something and you're performing. So it's not the same. Being authentic on stage is different than like being authentic in a conversation. You kind of almost have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're still in such a young, like, baby step phase of comedy. I mean, when you look at the greats, you know, they over the trajectory of their career, they've changed so much, their persona. So all these things add to getting to know that and developing who you are on stage.
Yeah. It's frustrating because like some like Brandon and Ariel at Backroom always talk about like there's like 300 mics and there's like 1,200 mics and they're like these steps you like have to cross, and I'm like 1,200? No, that's too many.
No, I don't think. I mean, I don't know the whole backstory behind what they're saying, but don't listen to Brandon and Ariel.
I think there's an idea like you can tell like there's only so much you could have developed at a certain point. Like so much experience has to happen for you to reach this level, and then so much more for you to reach like the next level.
Well, I think for me, I always look at it in the sense, I get what they're saying, because it's that whole concept of like so many hours to reach mastery, right? Like anything, you have to do it a lot to get good at it. So, right. I mean, I get in theory what they're saying. It's not the exact number, right? But for me, for example, you and I are of a similar age. And so already we have a huge leap ahead of the younger people.
Yeah.
Right? And those are things. So for me, when you tell me 1,200 mics, us, it's going to be maybe a little different in terms, because it depends too what you're trying to develop, right? Like, is it about, when it's about content and about life experience, oh my God, we're so far ahead of the game because we're old as fuck. You know what I mean?
There is, I think, like something about people over 40 do have an edge on comedy, because some of it's just like your perspective on life and how you handle failure. And obviously someone at 40 has more perspective.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard this, but it was just last week. Someone famous said it. In comedy, you're either going to make it through when you're in your 20s or in your 40s.
Yeah.
So all of you in your 30s, you're fucked. But I love that. I was like, oh yeah, there's hope.
Yeah, I think about like Bill Burr a lot, because the first time I saw him, there were all these other comedians that were coming out around the same time, and they were younger, they were closer in age to me. And then Burr was this guy, I was like, oh my God, I think this guy's like 40. But then I was like, but he's really cool. But he was definitely like a different type of comedy than like, I can't think of, she has blonde hair and is like a really famous comedian. Amy Schumer.
Oh.
Like they were kind of new at the same time, but it was like the 20 something and the 40 something. So it's like a totally different, and they're different comedians. Yeah.
Bill Burr, I think, is such a incredible case study, because he really changed his persona over the years, and he's so unique. You know, it's I always wonder about that, because when we talk about authenticity, I mean, I think that is one side, I imagine, of his persona, but an extremely exaggerated side, because you can't also forget this is an art, and it's not really you. Like when I go on stage, sure, this is a part of me that you'll see, but we're so multifaceted, you know? And so really you are kind of taking this one part and exaggerating it. I love comedy because I think it's such a beautiful journey into the self.
So before you did comedy, you did some acting?
No, not really. So when I was a teenager, I always knew I wanted to be famous. I mean, there's pictures of me as a little girl with a microphone. I was always doing shows from like the tiniest, so small. I loved it. And I went to high school. I went to Etobicoke School of the Arts, and I studied drama, dance, and singing, because I love singing and acting. But then, I was telling you this before, but then I was in School of the Arts, and artsy people, they make me uncomfortable. Is that terrible? But you know how some people are just like super extra eccentric, or I'm just like, it makes me a little...
You are like a very down to earth kind of person.
I'm a bitch, yo. I'm a bitch. That's what it is. People tell me, they're like, you're such a bitch, and I love you for it. And I'm like, I am. I'm Latina. I was raised very judgmental. I'm very judgmental. I'm looking at you thinking like, ugh, you know?
What country is your family from?
Chile.
Nice.
They're from Chile. So yeah, that's a whole thing too. I'm in therapy for this now. I'm trying to be a better person, but it's so hard.
But that was weird, like being a teen at this like arty school.
Yeah, it was tough. It was very tough. And we were also, I think people don't understand what it was like for us growing up, and then also now. So I remember, I mean, this is terrible, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but fuck it, we're gonna say it. I think the moment I knew that it was time for me to leave, I had a very good friend. First of all, I had a huge crush on this guy too, right?
Yeah.
But he's gay, and so how I found out, one morning, you know, there's a PA announcements. He goes on the PA system. He's like, hey, I want to come out as gay. I was like, all right, I'm done. That's it. I'm out of here. Now, first of all, because it was like, I mean, I don't want to know about your sexuality first thing in the morning, right? And to do it that way, I mean, that was his thing. but it was a lot of changes that were happening at a time that it was a lot to handle. And even now too, it's very.
What year was that?
So for me, I was in high school. What was that? I must have been in 91 or 89, something like that.
Oh my God. That is early. Because I think my school, I think the first kid who came out, it would have been like 96, maybe.
It was tough. It was, I've never been homophobic or anything like that, but I made a joke about this the other day. I'm from the era where, for example, when you found out a woman was a lesbian, it was like, the reaction was, to gas. Or if anyone was gay, it was like, well, like what happened to them? What's wrong with them? Right? Because it was different. It was something that was everything at that time, and not only that, everything was hidden, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about domestic violence. Rape was your fault. Like all of these things were different. Being eccentric. I mean, to see people the way they dress now. I was, it's so funny. I was thinking about this today when I was getting ready for the show, because I put on my signature red lipstick.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking how crazy, when I was little, a woman wearing red lipstick during the day was taboo. You were a puta.
Yeah.
You were a puta. It was only at night. And even at night, it was also the night women,
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, is sometimes like I'm talking to a younger friend and I'm trying to tell them something from being a teenager, and I want to tell them like how slutty this girl was dressed. But it's like, I'm like, but I would just be describing what people are wearing all the time. And I'm like, you have to understand, in 1995, if you were wearing skin tight pants, you were at a dance class or you were a hooker.
Yeah, no, 100%. Things are so different. I remember one of my most freeing moments, this is how crazy it is, was when I first put on blue nail polish.
Oh my God.
Because only witches would wear blue, purple, black nail polish. It was only the witches.
Yeah.
And people, I'm not exaggerating, like this is how I grew up.
Well, and I don't think people get it now. Like, you could be goth and like walk to your office and do that. But you used to be like, you would be known around town. Like, you could get accused of a crime if you dressed like a weirdo.
100%.
Like, people were afraid of other people, and the judgment was extreme, and it was scary to be different.
Yeah, the judgment was extreme. It was difficult times. It's incredible we survived. To be honest. But obviously with a lot of trauma.
So growing up, did you have a lot of siblings?
I have one sister.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it was the two of you and your parents.
Yeah, but I left home when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so my life has been very interesting. Very interesting. And, I think my comedy is just, it's memories. It's all based on memories. It's just a beautiful kind of collage of my stories, so for example, one of my crowd favorites is a joke that I do about joining a gang to meet a boyfriend, right?
Oh my God.
I'm single and I'm like, where can I go to meet handsome guys? Oh, I joined a gang. and so it's funny because that joke, it talks about how I dated a guy named Metralleta, right? Which is true. I did join a gang when I left home. So I left home and I was alone, and I as a child wants a sense of family. The gang was there, and so I joined a gang, and I dated a guy, and his name was Metralleta, and he had a stutter. So it's all based on true story, but of course you exaggerate it to make the joke, right? Metralleta, it means machine gun.
Oh my God.
and they called him that, and this is the joke, but it's actually true. They call him that because he has a stutter. He was always like,
like a machine gun. That's hilarious.
It's terrible. This is our sense of humor. It's a very putting down sense of humor, That's like when people tell me like, oh, you can't, like this PC culture. Oh.
You're struggling with it.
I struggle with it. But for example, and I think this is part of growth. So the past few days when Tony Hinchcliffe made the comments that he did about Latinos and Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So for context, he opened for a Trump rally.
Yeah.
And they know he's an insult comic, but then he also was making fun of Puerto Rico, Puerto Ricans, and now he's upset a lot of people.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say making fun. It was racism. It was disgusting, the things that he said about my people. And I'm gonna tell you something. When I saw that, 24 hours after that, it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult. I as a comedian and as a Latina, because as a Latina, to hear that racism and that hatred towards my people, it's infuriating. I mean, if you've never experienced racism, it's just it's this feeling of impotencia, like you can't do anything, you know, because this is a white man in a rally and he's being cheered on, and the images are shown across the world, and people are commenting in support, and other people are like, I don't care. It's a horrible, horrible feeling, you know. But as a comedian, it's even more difficult because, you know, it's like what I was saying, this PC culture. Where do you draw the line? What is comedy? What isn't? What is okay? You know, and for me, like I think like the things that he said, not because I'm a Latina, it's just because I'm very technical. What he did was hack. I didn't like it. It was for shock value. There was no effort, no intelligence behind it. It was shit. It was shit comedy. I don't like that comedy. I don't like hack comedy. You better have, for me, you better invest work in your jokes. There has to be a process there. There has to be structure. There has to be thought. Like I don't like comedy that's just based on personality. I don't like comedy that's just shock value. You know, like I want, it's an art form. I respect the art. Having said that, again, I don't think that people should be censored in what they say in comedy, because comedy, I feel like, is such an important gatekeeper for society, because sometimes I think even though we don't ask for that role, we call people out on their shit.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult, that comment, and I'm very interested to see what happens to him.
I think I like that though, what you say about it, where it's like not that you're not allowed to say something, but once you say it, people are allowed to be upset with you. And I think that's where the balance is. Like, you're allowed to juggle knives, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't hurt someone with the knife, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so the other thing too about that was, like, I love racial stereotypes. I think that shit is so funny, so funny. But I think it's funny because it's absurd. Like, there's some truth behind it, but there's also, it's the absurdity, the exaggeration of it.
Yeah.
You know? And so then I'm just like, I had to rethink a lot of the things that I do as well. And I started to rethink some of my jokes too. And so as you go through this process as a comedian, and also as you start to be seen more, and there's a responsibility there with the things that you're saying. So I don't think that it's okay to use comedy as an excuse to say whatever you want either. I think if you're going to do this, and if your intention is to be seen and to be in the public eye, you know, for real, I do think there's some responsibility there. I think you have to be a little bit accountable for the things that you say. And so for me, it's unforgivable what that man did. And I don't consider him a comedian. He's a fucking hack. He's a loser. Fuck that guy. Fuck you, Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't like that guy. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Who is someone you do like?
I know. I just feel that that's so hard. That's so hard as a comedian to say.
No, but it's okay. Like, you're upset by something, right? Like, that's an experience you're going through. Like, yeah, if you hated your, like, ex-partner, I wouldn't be like, you have to forgive him because you're on a show. You know?
Okay, so who do I like in terms of comedians?
Yeah, well, I guess you already said Seinfeld.
Yeah. So Seinfeld, I'm not a huge fan of, like, his content, but it's just his work ethic. I mean, his obsession is my obsession. Like I was telling you, I'm unhealthily obsessed with comedy. So I love his structure, the amount of time that he put in. You know, he would do like 5 hours a day, and then he had his calendar where it was like, you know, don't break the chain. He would put X's on his calendar every day. And so it got to a point where that was his priority. Like, he, you know, to see pages and pages of X's on calendars, you don't want to break that chain, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I think, like, people the other day told me, they're like, this is horrible. They're like, it's not healthy. It's not good to be as obsessed as you are. And you know what I thought was like, yeah, you're not going to make it. Like, I'm a terrible person. So anyways, but for him, I love that obsession and that work ethic, the 5 hours a day. And so he was like, for him, it was more important to have the X on the calendar. And that meant, like, all right, like, I don't care what else is going on. This is my first priority. I'm getting up, I'm doing this, and then I'm going to make time for everything else. Yeah. And if it means that I can't do that, well, I can't, because I have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's, I dig that about him. Now, in terms of like who I really enjoy, um, in their comedy style, of course, Marta Chavez. You know, she's an icon here in Canada.
I don't
Latina.
know Martha Chavez.
Marta Chavez. She's
Marta Chavez?
Yeah, she's the premier. Like I think the best, the only Latina comedian in Canada who's just like has the longest trajectory. She's incredible.
I'm out of the loop. Okay.
For shame, for shame. Marta. Marta Chavez is incredible. She's, I think, very inspiring for me as a comedian, as a female, as a Latina.
Did she grow up in Toronto?
She was born in Nicaragua, and she's been here for many years. She's been doing comedy for, I think, over 20 years.
Wow.
Very smart. I love watching her. She's very fast, very technically smart. Her style, like the things she talks about, she's very political. So that's not my style, but I love her personality. She has such a unique, strong personality on stage.
Yeah.
I adore Martha. I think she's incredible. Courtney Gilmore, do you know her?
No.
Hi, Karen. We're going to have to give you a thing. Courtney Gilmore is another incredible Canadian comedian. I had her on my show, and she's just so funny. She was on Canada's Got Talent. She won that, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's really good. Mark Forward too. He's like the only white male I think I'll mention. My God, I love Mark Forward. Oh my God, he's so
Mark Forward.
Yeah, he's also Canadian.
That sounds like a made up name.
No.
I'm just a regular guy. Mark Forward.
He's brilliant. He's very silly. He does characters on stage. I really dig his humor because it's very like. He's like a child, like a man child.
Oh.
He's wonderful though. I love him so much.
Do you know Nate Bargatze?
I do know him. I think I saw one stand-up special that he did where I think the most recent one where he talks about his child being a parent.
Not for you?
He's great. You know, it's so funny. A lot of the comedians that people say that they like, I'm not really digging them. Like, I don't know, because so many males and like the male dominated space, I feel like I hear one and they're pretty much the same. So if we want to talk about like, you know, United Stadian artists, comedians, Felipe Esparza. Oh my God, I love Felipe Esparza. He's so crazy. He used to be Felipe Esparza. So he's a Chicano, right, from Cali, and he's crazy. I saw him do Neil Brennan's podcast. He was like a crackhead and like,
oh my God.
Yeah, no, he has this insane story. He's hang out with cholos and like, I love it. And you see him, he seems like he's high all the time, but I don't think he uses anymore. It's just his vibe.
Yeah.
He's
I love
wonderful.
like how comedy can pull people out of like the lowest places.
Yeah.
And give them a platform.
100%.
And it is like, I don't know, it kind of gets back to like where you say like it's like the comedian's job to like call people out, but it's also like it's like you have to be kind of like down and out sometimes to be able to like see people like I don't know, like if the perspective is always like people who've always done well, like you don't get like an authentic like view of the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, because comedy is kind of processing pain in a way, so
yeah.
I don't know of one comedian who hasn't had a lot of trauma that's good.
Yeah.
Is that terrible? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, like it's usually.
Well, maybe Seinfeld is the only one because Seinfeld had a pretty
but if you
decent
listen,
life.
Seinfeld, well, I feel like his natural state is kind of miserable. Like he has this quote, this thing that came out recently, but he says like no matter what happens, he doesn't have a good time, and then he complains about it, and that's how he enjoys himself. So his comedy is his complaining, and that's what he likes about life is complaining about it.
Yeah.
So I think he's just always throughout his life, even if it was fine, was sort of suffering.
But this is why I think Seinfeld, he's observational. He talks about things, but not himself because he doesn't have life experience, really. He doesn't have trauma. You know, he doesn't. So you're not going to hear him talk about his life or like growing up, his parents or girlfriends, because he's in a way had it easy, I feel like, which is, you know, I mean, I don't know, that's probably not fair to say, because I think in this life we're all given as much as we can handle, and we all have different purposes, and those experiences line up with that purpose. So I mean, there's no judgment. This man has been unbelievably successful because he's worked very hard, and so good for him. but for example, I jive more. One of the people that I love so much, one of my first inspirations, of course, Russell Peters. I aspire
Oh
his
yeah.
style. Joe Coy, you know, the style of really talking about yourself and your family and your culture. I think they're absolutely incredible. Cristela Alonso, she's an up and coming Mexican, like Chicana comedian. I think she's incredible. So yeah, there's a lot, but I think
We have to make a list of all these names before you leave, because I feel like you're paying
don't know
attention
them?
to a totally different group
Oh,
of people than me.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and that's okay. Like, I think you can learn from everybody, but for me, my priorities are: I want to celebrate being a woman. I want to celebrate being Latina. You know, I want to celebrate being Canadian, being Chilena, being a mom. You know, like, so you kind of gravitate towards those things, but I think you can learn from anybody,
Yeah.
right?
I'm excited to see more moms in stand up, because I feel like, I don't know, like is it Janice Israeloff does a joke of just about like her kids not liking her, being annoyed with her, and I was just like, oh, like you forget that, like, I don't know, you don't get a
Yeah.
lot of mom perspective on in stand up, because it's a lot of single people, right?
Yeah, very
Or
young
getting
too, yeah.
married later in life people.
Yeah, I love Janice Israel is like the most Latina white woman I know. The way she brings up her kids, like, so she brought them up and she talks about them, like, she's like, hello, and she's like humiliate them just like me.
Yeah.
I have this joke about humiliating my son, because that's what it is, right? We build a backbone by treating them like shit. Yeah. Holy shit. But yeah, I love her style. I think she's incredible. I love Janice.
Is it just you and her that have kids? And just in terms of Toronto comedians, like, I can't think of any other women who are moms. And even sometimes when someone's on stage and they go, like, are there any parents in the audience? And like, no one says anything.
That's such a good question. I think you might be right, because I'm trying
Like,
to
it's
think.
an under tapped, and if you think about it, like, most women are moms, or they're about to be a mom, right? So it's weird that we don't have, because you're looking for a comedian that speaks to your experience, right? So if there's no moms doing comedy, that's like something like the audience isn't getting.
Yeah, no. And then it's so funny because you're saying we're on the way to be moms, but I think we're in that revolution now where women are kind of saying, I don't want to be a mom, and that's okay. And so in part, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it, but in part it kind of feels like, you know, with this woke culture is supposed to be so positive, but it's very negative in certain ways. So in a sense, it kind of feels like, and this isn't fair, like what I'm saying, like I might be just making this up, but it's kind of like, okay, in order to support the women that don't want to be moms, let's silence the moms.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is my thing with the woke culture, that I feel like in order to protect this person, let's silence this person. You know, so for example, there was a time where it felt, and this is probably not true, but it could be just because it was uncomfortable, when we were trying to bring up the homosexual community, right? The gay, the queer community. I'm so sorry. I struggle with this, right? Because I always want to be respectful and say in the right way. But when we were trying to bring up this community, it felt like many things in life, to do that, we had to bring down the heterosexual community. And so there was that clash, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think that it feels like that sometimes too, where I think as a mom too, if I would be a little intimidated to do a whole set on being a mom, because bookers might not know what to do with me, because also the audiences sometimes are young too. So again, going back to what we were talking about from the beginning, it depends too where your home base is and like who the crowds are. And so
I think there's something with progressive attitudes tend to be like hyper individualistic. So that's like, I think it ties into the like women who aren't moms and ideas of like it's really about the individual as opposed to like about the family. And so sometimes people think they're being forward thinking, but they're really just being like self-focused.
It's hard. Life is hard. Human interactions are hard. I just hope that we can get to the place where we just don't give a shit. You know, nobody gives a shit about anybody in terms of like judging them, whatever. We just like, okay, cool, do you know? Like there can be just some kind of respect amongst us all, you know, we get along.
I do kind of think, I think people go through phases, and when we're new to something, we get like hyper focused on it, and then we get used to it, and then people aren't as like focused on it.
That is true. Change is very uncomfortable. And so we've been going through the past, I would say, 40 years, intense change, like super fast change compared to any other time in history. You know,
Yeah.
it's been a lot of change at the same time. So you have the whole change in terms of like all these different cultural and societal groups. You have to change with the internet, with technology, with medicine,
Yeah.
with the environment. You know, I mean, it's been a lot. I'm fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm fucking tired.
Like-
But it's a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm like a change oriented person, and I think being in my 40s now, I'm like, I think I'm gonna slow down now. I'm like a little bit more comfortable like becoming out of touch with things and being like,
Yeah.
that was good, but I'm not gonna learn.
Yeah, no, same. You know, like Facebook was my news source, and I don't use Facebook that much anymore either. So it's like I don't watch the news because I think it's so unhealthy, and I don't know what's going on. And I'm very, very happy to live in my bubble. I think I found out about the whole Palestine thing because I saw protests on the street. I'm like, what's that about? And I was like, oh. That's
Imagine
terrible.
if you could only get news by talking to people and getting it through them.
Oh, you mean like the way it always was? You know, some guy would ride up on a horse. Hey, did you hear what happened a few towns down? Oh, shit.
But actually, like now that I'm doing stand up, I find out a lot about a lot of things,
Through stand-up
like
too, right?
certain more like news that I don't get on my phone, but other people getting. Like I know that there's stuff going on with Sean Diddy Combs, right? I don't go into that because I don't want to know. But then like I'll be at a mic and I'll get details because people want to
Yeah.
talk about like and it's anytime there's something really gross going on, like there's always comedians who want to let me know, and I was like, I skipped this for a reason.
100%. The U.S. elections, I heard about it through stand-up comedy. Open mic taught me about the Haktua girl. God bless that woman. I think she's incredible. I love her. That level of honesty. Good. Who hasn't done a good Haktua? You know what I mean? And she's totally profited off of that. So good for her.
I do. Sometimes I see something like that and I'm like, could I do something for 30 seconds that I then get paid for, like
100%.
in a way that changes my life?
100%.
That's crazy.
100%. We all can. If that's the path that you're meant to be on, it'll happen for sure. I mean, that girl, she was just drunk. It was a very authentic moment, right? Because she was just drunk at the club having fun with her friends. Some guy talks, she's in a silly mood. She says something silly to get a laugh.
Yeah.
But why did it resonate? Because it was so pure. It was so true. It was because it was like we were talking before. You felt like, I know that I could hang out with that girl. That girl's
Yeah.
me. I've done that too. You know, so it was like, I think those success or like those moments, those changing moments in general, they come from those very rare moments of pure authenticity. You know, when we completely revert to a child, to just, you know, where there's no thought prior to it, it just, that sliver. And I think that's good comedy too.
Yeah.
That's good comedy, is when you just say from your heart who you are, and in a way too what everyone's thinking but hasn't said, and it because it's just like, I see you. It's creating that I see you moment.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of good comedy comes from someone telling like a story about something going south. Like, oh, I was on a trip, but then like I got held up at airport security. But then sometimes like a comic is on stage and they're telling their story, but then like it starts going south in the room because there's like some audience member like disrupting, and then like you see something going south in real time, but it's like somehow being fun because the comic is like commenting on how bad it's going, and you can get this kind of like meta thing where it's like, you know, like a moment of like live theater where you're there in this like present moment of something kind of like deteriorating but being hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. In that vein, you know, thinking about some other comedians that I love, Patrick Hakeem, he's a local comedian. I don't know if you know him. I don't think I've ever seen anyone with the superpower that he has of turning an audience around. You know how sometimes you get audiences that are just like, meh, they're not laughing at anything, or they're very quiet. And he just goes on stage and berates them. He's like, have you guys never fucking been to a comedy club? What the fuck is wrong with you? You better start laughing. Don't you laugh. Don't you? I'm just like, what? And every time, He
Yeah.
turns them around because there's another masochistic part of comedy. People, audiences love for you to treat them like shit.
It's really weird. I was at the corner once and Jay Rainville did that. And it was funny because he
Yeah.
was like the last guy of the night and everybody had dealt, it wasn't a bad audience. Like they had come to a comedy club, they wanted to laugh, but there was just some kind of shyness in the air.
Yeah.
And so it was just like we all kind of like went up and did our thing and like tried to talk to them, and they just weren't. And then Jay, like, yeah, it was like he wasn't super mean, but he just kind of got at them. And yeah, he was like berating them a little bit, but it worked. And then
Yeah.
everyone was laughing. And I was like, wow, it really makes you want to work with someone again if you know they can do that.
Yeah, it happened to me in Austria. I'll never forget. I was performing in, oh my God, what's the name? Vienna.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've been very, like, I've performed all over the world. And I performed in Vienna. I had never seen this. It was, so the whole just situation was terrible, right? So we're at the top of an IKEA, on the roof of an IKEA, right? And so they have this kind of outdoor lunch area with like picnic tables. So we're on the roof, it's outside, windy, and we're doing comedy into a mic with one of those little portable speakers, right? And it's in a huge open space. So you can't really hear well. And it was packed though, there was a lot of people. But the audience was not laughing. Like they just, no matter who went up, right? And then at one point, one comedian goes up and he's like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm fucking done with you guys. You guys haven't laughed at anything. I'm only doing setups. No punchlines for you guys. And he went on. He did his 5 minutes, all setups. He would do the setup, get to the punchline, and then start a new setup. And he'd be like, fuck you guys. And then at the end, when he got upstairs, you guys are the worst fucking. And after all the comedians were dying laughing, and then after that, all the comedians just went on and they started berating the audience. You guys are the fucking worst. I don't even want to perform for you, but here's a joke. Fuck you. Right? It was insane. But I loved that experience. I don't know that I would do it, but I was just like, ay, mi madre.
That sounds amazing. I like that somebody thought to have a comedy show on top of an IKEA outside.
That's so funny, right?
Because usually you kind of, like a lot of stand-up clubs have like low ceilings. Like you want to like trap the sound so the laugh reverberates and it encourages
of
more
course.
laughter. But yeah, let's go outside at IKEA.
Yeah, no, it's so random. It's so random. Now, the other thing too, I had the opportunity to perform in Paris, and in Paris, a lot of the bars, or at least the place I went to, they were cellars, right? So these are houses where you're kind of like in a literal cave, right? So you're underground, and you see like these arches of how it was built and stuff, and it's like rock, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
And so the vibe is it's very different. The sound travel is very different. It's like an amazing experience.
It's in a good way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's one of those I've been very blessed. I've been able to do a lot of crazy shows, like in very unexpected venues.
Yeah.
So the last one I did internationally was in Tulum in Mexico, and that was maybe one of the worst ones. I tried so hard, but it was like a restaurant. And then at the back of the restaurant, they had set up a beautiful seating area, which was in the open, but it was still like a backyard, right? And then there's the elevated stage and there's palm trees beside you. It was so tropical. But I get there and it's a restaurant, and they hadn't promoted it as a comedy night. So half the people that were there didn't know it was comedy. They were there to have dinner. Then it was a half expat crowd, half Mexican crowd. So she's like, just do your jokes and translate as you go. I'm like, lady, have you ever seen stand-up like this? It was the most insane situation.
Did you try translating?
I had to. I had to do my
So
first
you did it
on the
in
spot
English
bilingual and Spanish.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I remember there was this one guy sitting at the back, and there's one of my other favorite comedians in the city is James Cummings. James Jan.
Oh
Easy.
yeah, Jam Easy. He's amazing.
He's incredible. When I first started, I remember being so impressed with his crowd work. And I asked him, I'm like, bro, how do you do it? Teach me. And he gave me a very simple piece of advice. I'm forever grateful to him for this because it really has transformed my performance. And it was, whoever stands out to you, talk to that person. Because odds are, if you notice them, the other people in the audience did too. And they're wondering about that person too.
Oh.
And he couldn't have been more right. And so I'm in Tulum, Mexico, doing my show. And there's this guy sitting at the back. He looks like just out of a movie, right? Like a Mexican narco or some shit, right? He's sitting alone, eating his soup, looking at me. I'm like, He's kind of laughing, but not really. You know, he's like, "What the fuck is this girl?" You know, like very, very sus, the guy. And I talked to him, and I'm like, "Hey, ¿cómo estás? Like, what's up? What are you eating?" He's like, "I'm having meatball soup." And I'm like, "What, are you here alone?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What, are you not married? Are you single?" He's like, And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What's going on? You don't have a girlfriend?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I'm a widower." I'm like, "Oh, shit. Did you kill her?" And he's like, and his reaction, I'm like,
He killed her.
the way he reacted, I think he killed his fucking wife, bro. I'm not even joking. It was crazy. It was nuts. It was nuts. Thanks, Jamiezy. There you go. But yeah, it was so crazy, that show.
That's actually, I like that a lot. That is good advice.
It's great advice. He's incredible.
I like my favorite thing about Jamiezy is when he talks about his dad cheating on his mom.
That's a really smart joke. Really smart joke.
I don't know, and just the way like he can't stop talking about it, and I love that because I feel like we all have these things in us that like that we're plagued by, and he's just like, I'm just gonna keep bringing it up because it bugs me and I want to.
No, he's wonderful. For me, he's my favorite for crowd work. I have yet to see someone I like do crowd work better than him.
There's something too because he has like a cuteness about him, so there's.
But very toxic, you know?
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like he can do more than most people because he doesn't seem like, it's like he can say something and he has like an endless amount of forgivableness or something.
Yeah, no, he's the punchline. Just his presence is the punchline, you know, because he seems one way, but then it's like, surprise, motherfuckers, you know? He just comes at you like, oh shit, you know? He seems like he's gonna be like, okay, but then it's just like, oh, okay. All right, we need to move on quickly before.
Okay. Can we talk a bit about the Spanish English thing? Because I only have one language. So when you're telling jokes in Spanish, is it totally different?
Oh my God, it's so interesting that you asked me about that because I'm going through a little crisis, a decision making about that in my career. My dream is to one day perform at El Festival de Viña, which is a very important festival in Chile and in Latin America. All artists, Latin American artists, they aspire to go there, and you go and then you get a seagull. It's called La Gaviota, and it's by applause. And so the audience is called the monster, el monstruo. And so the audience has to applaud for you. And if they applaud for you, you get a gaviota, a silver one. And then they ask you, and if you do that, then they ask you to come back and do another few minutes. You do another few minutes, and if you do well again, then they give you a gold gaviota, the gold seagull. Now, the funny thing was, Enrique Iglesias, he went there and he didn't know. I don't know what the hell is wrong with this guy. And he won the gaviota and he's like, I love you, Chile. And he throws it into the audience. But this is like a silver heavy thing. It hit a girl in the head. She was in the hospital. It's like, oh my God. It's fucking nuts. So I aspire to go there, but not kill anybody, you know? But yeah, so the Spanish thing, so doing comedy in Spanish and English, it's been also very important, I think, for me to develop my comedy and think about it. It's so crazy, my career as a comedian in Spanish, because the first show I ever did was when I was very new to comedy. I think it was only like 4 months in. It was at Backroom.
Yeah.
And so there was like maybe 30 people in that audience, and
this was your first Spanish show?
First Spanish show ever. I do that one, and then it went okay, you know, and I was like, all right, that was my first time, wasn't so bad. Then I get booked a second time, and then the second time I'm opening for Jorge Alice, who's an Argentinian headliner, and that was for 400 people.
Oh wow.
This is my second time doing stand-up. Third time, no, that Jorge Alice was like 300. Third time was opening for Don Sliming, who's one of the top up-and-coming comedians in Latin America right now. He's very famous.
Oh my God.
That was 400 people.
Wow.
And then the last show was one that I produced, which was with this guy Joche Vidal from Chile, who just won Chile's Got Talent. And so he came here, and we did that at Comedy Bar Bloor, and there was like 40 people, and I feel like I bombed. Like I didn't bomb, but I didn't do well. And so I just thought, this has been a crazy ride. Like I feel like I want to stop with the Spanish shows because I don't know, like it makes me feel like not confident. Like it makes me question myself
because you're not
it's different.
practicing in Spanish.
No.
You're practicing in English.
In English, and so. Now, having said that, I just got invited to do another radio show because I've done a few radio shows in Spanish. I'm like, yeah, we want you to perform it, but I'm like, oh, okay, I can never say no. You can't, as a comedian, you can't say no to a show. But so the thing is with doing it in English and Spanish, so I tried to translate the jokes, but not everything is translatable, right? And also not everything is appropriate. Like a lot of my jokes in English are going to be about what it's like to be Latina. Well, I can't go and tell Latinos they know that, you know? So I have to think like, what are we going to talk about? And so then we're talking about our culture and our things and things that I can't talk about with non-Latino crowds. But then there are some jokes that are universal and you can translate.
Yeah.
But then the timing's different. And then the words. Oh my God. In Latin America, there's like, I think 20 countries. I don't remember the exact number, but there's many countries and every country has its own accent. So I had one joke I remember where the punchline used the word light bulb. And I use the word light bulb as I know it. And people were like, what is that? And there are 4 or 5 different ways to say light bulbs across Latin America.
That's so frustrating.
So it becomes a thing about using you have to be very conscious of using generic words, you know? Now, interesting.
And so much can hinge on a word, like, especially if a word has like a K sound or just some words are just funny. And you put it at the end because it sort of punches the joke out. But like, yeah, if that word isn't funny when you switch it into Spanish.
Yeah. Like, so for example, for me, when I go and hear the young comedians, they use words I don't know, like about slang and a lot of, what was it, the other one? I don't remember it. I can't remember what it was, but let's say it was pegging, right? Because pegging is a very new concept for me. I didn't know about this concept, pegging. And so I heard someone and the whole punchline was on pegging. I didn't get the joke because I didn't know what pegging was. You know, the same thing when they talk about these books, these cartoon books, these Asian cartoon books, which are
manga.
I don't know what the hell that is, you know?
Yeah.
And so...
or sometimes even just people 10 years younger than me they're just referencing their shows. And I'm like, I know who Miley Cyrus is. I know she's Hannah Montana. I don't know her theme song. That's too many things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's so many artists too, which like, I don't know now. Like, so anyway, so you know, it's about the words are so important when you're a comedian, the concepts of making sure that they're explained. It's hard because you don't want to over explain, you want to make it kind of punchy, the joke, but you also have to think about your audience and also make sure that that's clear, and that happens in any language, right?
It's interesting because it's like, yeah, you kind of have your own audience, so I might have all these reference points that some people won't get, but my audience in general will get them.
And when we're starting out, we don't have an audience yet.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a beautiful part of the journey, and where we're at now is that we have to try these things and learn. And so we have to be able, I think you go from like grand, and then you kind of get smaller and niche into your group and your audience, and they'll know you and they'll know your jokes, right? But you have to be able to work with a whole bunch of different scenarios.
You know what was weird for me? Like, I don't smoke weed at all, but I had really good sets in front of weed crowds. And then I'm like, who is my audience? Right? Like, cause like a friend of mine who's like just did her first set ever. And the crowd was mostly male. And then she was saying like she wanted a female audience. And I was trying to think like, I was like, I kind of think this girl's going to have more of a male audience once she gets going. But like, it's interesting, like just because you're a woman, you don't necessarily have a predominantly female audience, although you may. And like, you don't really know who it is. And you're also evolving your material. So it might change a bit over time.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I just had someone very grateful for the follow. Of course, I saw me do a show and they like me and they follow me, and now they're a fan. Like they write to me all the time and stuff. I'm like, okay. And then they said, you're my favorite female comedian. I'm like, I couldn't have been more offended, huh? I was like, I hope one day to be your favorite comedian, you know? But it's true, there are some female comics that are very much for female audiences, like Taylor Tomlinson. She's got like a female following for sure, 100%. But then you see, for example, Ali Wong. I feel like she's mixed. Sarah Silverman. I think she's pretty mixed. Tina Fey is mixed for sure, you know. So it does depend on things. But
is there a female comic who has a predominantly male audience?
Hmm. I can't think of one at the moment.
Is there a male comic who has a predominantly female audience?
Matt Rife.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I don't like that guy.
I do
I
like
shouldn't
that
even
guy.
say
I'm
that.
that guy's target audience because I found him on TikTok, and you know, like TikTok knows what you like, right? Like
Yeah,
even if
yeah.
you don't want to admit it, like the algorithm finds you.
Yeah, it's so unfair for me to say I don't like that guy. I've never seen him. I've never seen his stand up. He might be very funny. I think I
Yeah.
tried to watch part of that one that he got called out on where he
Oh,
did.
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it wasn't really my style, I don't think.
Yeah,
But I haven't
think
watched him enough
his
to form an
main thing
opinion.
is like he does a lot of crowd work, and he's very flirty, like with the audience, So he's sort of like playing with them, and it's really fun. Like I love it, but I can respect if you. I think a lot of men and some women are just like, no, not for
Yeah,
me.
so the crowd work. Let's talk about the crowd work stuff because that's such a hot topic. I don't know how I feel about the crowd work, to be honest with you, because I know a lot of comedians are becoming famous because they do crowd work videos, right?
Yeah,
And so, granted, when you're doing social media, you have to create content, and it seems like now you create content by either doing skits, doing a podcast, or doing crowd work.
yeah,
Right? That's where you're going to get the majority of your feedback or your followers, excuse me. And so the other day I went to go see, whenever there's a Latino comic come through, I always go check them out because I'm always
yeah,
supporting them and I want to learn from them and whatever. And I saw this one who shall remain nameless who went up and they started with crowd work. The middle they did a few jokes, but then the last like 20-30 minutes of their 1 hour show
Oh my god.
was inviting people to come on stage and doing like a dating game, where they had to,
No.
yeah. And I was like, bro, this isn't stand up. Like,
Yeah.
this feels like a variety act to me. And so I feel like, I think I'm a bit of a purist in that regard, in that I think a little crowd work is okay, but if you're at that point where your people are going to see you because they want to be in your crowd work video, I don't know if that's stand up anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
the
know.
thing is, like, I like it, like a crowd work video might come up on my phone and I'll like that. But when I talk about the stand up comedians that I like, that's based off of like what I think of your 1 hour special. Like I have to like you doing just like straight stand up.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I opened for this guy called Alfred Robles, who I like him a lot. He opened for Fluffy, who is also one of my favorite comedians, Gabriel Iglesias. And his videos, what you see on his Instagram, is crowd work videos. But I love Fluffy, and I had seen Alfred perform. He opened for Fluffy years ago, and so I got to open for him. But I hadn't seen his set in a long time because he doesn't post any of his jokes.
Yeah.
And his set was good. He's funny. He's got great. And then at the end of his set, so he did like a full hour of jokes. Like he did a stand-up set,
Yeah.
and then he had some crowd work, and it was good. And I thought that was a good balance to kind of sprinkle it, but it can't be the meat. Like I saw another comedian come in, Latino too, and he performed at Backroom. Surprisingly, he had done like the Phoenix. He had done like 2 big shows,
Yeah.
and then he was like Keys and Backroom. Right, which was kind of like odd. Like you're going to like these huge venues, like these 2 small ones. I'm
Yeah.
like, good for you though, but like whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was just he did a few minutes of jokes, but it was mainly crowd work, and I was just like, I don't like this. So, anyways, very judgmental, like I said.
No, that's cool. I think the one person I've really liked doing just crowd work was like Jason Rouse, who I
don't know
saw
who that is.
like he's been around for a long time, but I think he came out around like 2008 maybe, and I saw him in a club and he did like his whole set is kind of done with the crowd, but he's like a master at it.
That reminded me, Sam Morrill. Do you remember? Do you know this
Oh,
guy?
I love him.
Okay, so I loved him too for the crowd work. This was the first comedian I ever saw do crowd work. For me, he was like the one that started it because at least that I saw.
Yeah.
And so when he came to the last JFL, I was so excited to see him because I had never really seen his jokes, just a little bit. And then when I saw him perform, bro, I followed him right away. I hate his comedy. It was very misogynistic. I didn't like it at all. I thought, he seemed very edgelord. Like the show that I saw, not a fan. I loved his crowd work though. It's hilarious.
See, I like Sam Morrill.
I don't know. Maybe I have to see him again. But that show I saw was terrible. I really didn't like. I followed him right away. I was like, I don't like this at all. I don't like what you said. Fuck you. Who are you?
Yeah, shit.
Anyways.
Comedy's really personal, right? Like it's just like meeting someone. Like you might just be like, "Fuck this guy, no way."
100%. And you go through phases too, right? Because I might have been going through something too that day when I went to see Sam Morrill. I'm like, fuck you, Sam Morrill. And now I'm like over that phase. I'll go back and be like, holy shit, bro, you're so funny. Let me follow you again. But it's 100% personal. And for me, I think since I started doing comedy, one of the biggest lessons has been to not take things personally and to love myself more and to be just more accepting of me and who I am. Because at the end of the day, not everyone's gonna like my comedy, and that's fine, and not everyone's gonna be happy for me, and that's fine. I don't need that. I'm just here doing my work, putting in my effort, trying to be true to myself, tell my story. If you want to listen, thank you. If you don't want to listen, thank you too. If you want to say something negative, you're about to get fucked up though. Don't talk shit. Don't talk shit.
I love that. I feel like I think that's a good perspective to have as a comedian. I feel like I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's growth, I think, because too many of us suffer for that reason, you know? When I first started going to the open mic scene and everything, even though I've heard that our open mic scene is lovely and much more healthy than it has been in the past, it was very difficult. I did feel very insecure. I felt ostracized. I didn't feel part of it. You know, it was difficult, but I stuck with it and made my way. And then I realized I had heard something someone said to me, and now 2 years in, I see the truth of it. A lot of times the comedians that have been doing it longer, they seem like total dicks, right? Because they won't really talk to you. They won't let you in. But the reality is they've been doing it for so long. They've seen so much rotation. There comes a point where you don't really want to invest in new people because you don't know if they're going to stick around. So it's that thing about kind of earning your stripes and earning your place by continuity. And so the same thing now for me, now seeing the first year comedians, I get their journey, I get where they're at, but I also get why I don't want to spend too much time with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think it's too like when you want to talk to people who are kind of at your phase or at a higher phase, because you can learn from people who are farther down the road from you. And then you have things in common with people who are at the same, like you and I started at the same time. So we have a similar kind of like amount that we know this far. And then sometimes I talk to somebody and they've just done one set and they want to talk to me a lot about that. And I'm like, I don't want to be mean, but it's just like, I'm bored of talking about my first set. I want to talk about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing too is there's some people that are just, you see something potential in them. I'll talk to those people too.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's some people that you're just like, oh, bro, you're too far new. Like you're either, I don't know where this is gonna go. So you know what, I don't want to invest too much time. But there's some people that you just, like anything, right? There's some people you just resonate with, right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, this is a nice person. Worst case scenario, like you just think that like good vibes, you know?
Or like sometimes people come into the scene, they're just a character. You know 100%. What I mean? You're just like, even if they weren't doing comedy, if they had just showed up at your job, you'd be like, oh, sit down beside me. I want to hear about you.
Yeah, for sure. I have this secret, maybe not so secret, writer's room, which is by invitation only. So I invite a group of comedians that at all different stages to my home, and we meet like maybe once or twice a month and we write together. Amazing. You know? Yeah. And so some of them are newer, some of them are older, but all of them, I love something about them. You know, either they're great writers, they're great stand-ups, they have interesting personalities. But at the end of the day, I trust them, and they all contribute something in their own way to the group. And it's a safe space, and it makes me very happy because the reason why I share that is I think that some people have this idea that you have to go through this journey alone, or that it's a huge competition. I don't think it is. I think that there's room for everybody. And I think that you can get anywhere faster by helping each other out in community. Why am I going to want to take the long route when I can jump ahead by having, you know, help from other people?
For sure.
And helping other people too, bringing other people up.
That's really cool. That's such a special thing to do.
Yeah, I'm a good person.
Just a former gang member turned humanitarian.
Watch your purse. Watch your shit.
Michi, I have loved having you on.
I love doing this. Thank you.
Is there anything, nothing too soon because I don't know when this is going to air, but anything you want to plug?
No, not at all.
What's your name on socials?
So Seriously Michi, which is Michi, and I just go by the stage name Michi, like you're saying.
I love it.
Yeah, I like it too. I wasn't sure.
There's no other Michi, right?
No, there's no other Michi. And then I thought if it was good enough for Sinbad, it's good enough for me. I love Sinbad, yo.
Nice. Thanks so much.
No, thank you for having me. I absolutely loved it. Karen Mitches, follow the podcast. Incredible show. Thank you.
Thank you.